The Twilight Garage podcast is brought to you by The Red Onion, the Bay Area's finest hamburgers, located at 11900 San Pablo Avenue in El Chorrito. Tell them Twilight Garage sent you.
Woo! Love you. Casey, the big case. What do you got for us, kid?
Oh man, we're doing this exciting new series coming up, huh?
I can't believe we're finally going to delve into it.
What a book to hit too.
It is just such a magnum opus. Of course, we're talking about Vincent Bugliosi's book as written by Mr. Gentry, which is a near pattern perfect duplicate of the book he had released previously that no one connected, called
The Late Great State of California.
And it's basically echoed in Helter Skelter, which I found to be one of the most exciting pieces of fictional work. I think the fact that it got foisted off on millions of people, that it is the standalone narrative that still pretty much represents the worldwide opinion of how this case went down,
Absolutely.
who the characters are and what their character is. I think it's just a defining watermark piece. I find a lot of issues with it. There's, as you have found, immediately, we're just scraping in the first couple pages in the upcoming episodes.
So we don't know how many episodes we're going to do on Helter Skelter, but we're going to try to do a nice volume, a nice complete work.
It's going to bring everything in with it because you have to triangulate your information. I think you have to use a few different points of view on any one point to really find the reference. And then what we do here is we generally call Deb Silva, if she's not actually on the show, she's definitely in our hearts and in our prayers at all times, but she will definitely find the veracity of the statement for us if we're not able to do it with our own reference material. But that's what's important. And this book to have been foisted off is just an incredible, what a coup. He's a weird dude. If you'll read his history, Tom O'Neill's book really goes into trashing him. Like, it just zestfully ruins the guy. And what an incredible hunk of shit as a human being.
So we're going to take our turn at the old bugs, and we're going to praise him on the stuff that he got right. And we're going to shit all over him on the stuff he got wrong.
Well, and for me, as a vindictive, short man complex having asshole, just unworthy feeling person sometimes, I gotta say, fuck yeah for Vince, because if I could have been as dirty, shitty, and ugly as he was to pull this fucking thing off legally and in every other way, I'd have felt good about it with that value system. So he just felt like a fucking winner.
And Stephen K., don't be jealous, bro, because your buddy wrote a book that's the highest selling true crime book of all time. I mean, you could have done the same thing, man.
Stephen K. from the LA County Prosecutor's Office. Stephen K. from his mother. Yeah, this whole thing is such a spectacle. But we're going to get into some of the rock and roll circus elements that I find absolutely fascinating. The entertainment people that bowed out. Oh, we don't know them. Oh, they're hanging out with Canned Heat. They're hanging out with Neil Young, Stephen Stills, all these people in Buffalo, Springfield, Crosby, Stills, and Nash. They meet everybody. Everyone has sex with them. Everyone loves them. They're apparently a jovial, fun, exciting group of people with a neat edge. Charlie's the Wizard. It's just wild on one hand. And then we bring it back down to the book. It's so all-encompassing. Thank you for your patience. Thanks for tuning in. I'm just getting so excited. You can go any direction with it. And then people want to argue with it. Survivors. No, that's not how it was. But what a great.
I love you, Twilighters. Stay tuned.
What a great thing. Twilight Tales. Welcome back. Again, eternally grateful. Something to look forward to, something in my life that's really good. I'm enjoying very much. Always trying to keep it about the case, always trying to keep it about the survivors, the victims, and what is real in this thing that makes us all human. We keep swearing we're going to do something else, but it's been Manson here on Twilight Garage, because what a rich vein. What an exciting, crazy period in time. Our good buddy here, where we left it, Bobby Bosley, has been locked in prison. He's never seen freedom. We're in 2025. They're considering his freedom, considering his release. But in 1969, he's been locked up first week in August for murder. And we have ideas and feelings swirling around what's known as Spawn Ranch. Charlie has said in jail interviews time and time again, he thought it was Red, Blue, and Gold who came up with the concept. You and I feel also, I think, Linda Kasabian had some skin in the game to want to direct some violence. She saw money. She saw a purse up on 5000 Cielo Drive. And what else do you believe, Case, about that night? My man, Big Case.
I think that several different people had their own reasons for what happened that night.
Very individual.
Yeah. I think that they were in need of money. And so I think that the love of brother is definitely an aspect of it, that they wanted to get their brother Bobby out. They also
but then there's the group finance, which that's group survival. So we have twofold. Okay.
Sandra and Mary were just recently arrested and put in prison that night, or jail that night. And so wanting to get them out was also at the utmost priority.
Because we got a baby involved.
And some people think that they were probably trying to bail them out that weekend. I don't know if that's possible. Like, that's a Monday morning.
No, it's a Monday morning
thing. Yeah.
At best.
Yeah. So
Monday afternoon.
So also we know that Charlie was raising funds to get out to the desert. They were trying to go that direction.
Thinking about that, they had bomber, like literal belly bomber fuel tanks full of fuel. So we're talking about hundreds of gallons of fuel, hundreds, potentially at least 100 gallons of motor oil, all kinds of auto parts that have been documented as either being witnessed or seized later in these various raids that happened not much longer after the actual murders. Certainly enough time had passed to really unsettle the Los Angeles basin itself. But out at Spawn Ranch, different trip, different scene, with Bobby locked up in this excitement. Now,
they also could have been going the copycat route, trying to take the shade off of Bobby. And look, this murder that occurred where there was a animal print left on the wall, wasn't this guy that you have in Ventura jail, right? It's actually look, we got some more murders that are taking place that are similar.
And again, that plays into what we were talking about, this cooling of American society, this eschatology, as you had pointed out earlier. It's not a theological thing, it's a personal thing that we've all gathered in our culture. A pseudo-spirituality, a feeling of self-worthiness, of righteousness, of existence, of entitlement, of our next breath, things like that. So we've got these people all together on these trips who are feeling very earnest because of their youth, I think. There's drugs, there's excitement, there's the matching of energy and one-upsmanship that happens oftentimes in young youthful groups. You'll see it even in Christian groups and stuff. You've seen some of those young life groups kind of spin out of control. People get
Absolutely
a little too excited. But again, short of calling it a cult or these different things, there was such a level of group excitement that I believe is rooted in very explainable things. I think we have this personal philosophy, which is a form of madness, because a lot of us are involved in this narcissistic process of self-affirmation. I'm good. I'm getting through this. I'm okay. I'm not trying to hurt anybody. Cool. You know, this self-forgiveness as we go. And that's not new. How do you think we survive being born into original sin in a Christian culture, right? So we've got these kids on these guilt trips that they haven't worked out. You're opening up your third eye with psychedelic drugs, which is very meaningful to a young person like that, especially in this time. So they've all got this bond. So then it becomes your personal madness, which is not uncommon. You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying this in a negative way. Personal madness. And then you've got relationship-based madness, you and me madness. My wonderful co-host, noted Manson expert, author of the book that you now know and love that is yet to be released at the time of broadcast. But now, going back, looking at this, you are a great fan because of his book, No Sense Makes Sense. One of the most important referential books ever created on this case. Of course, with the divine help of our wonderful friend, the woman on the top of the information mountain, our dearest, esteemed mentor, Ms. Deb Silva. This book has come out and made you a great expert. I'm speaking in the future, and I'm so excited to have you here, Case.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate it.
Because the brothership connection is real. And where we're headed with this is a place of compassion, even for Bernard Crowe. We look at Bernard Crowe, who was a victim of Tex Watson. So he has been victimized. TJ has been victimized by being exposed to this very stressful and I'm sure triggering thing. He had served as a Marine.
Yep.
On a volunteer basis. He was a very rugged, manly fellow, but a very sensitive guy. When you hear him speak and you see him in the scripted thing of Hendrickson with Gypsy, I personally, as a young boy, remember TJ as is very mirthful and fun. He was just like a great, cool guy, just real supportive as like an older brother type figure in the neighborhood when he would come around. Just a really neat dude. And to see what they got put through, you're in close quarters with a bunch of guys. And your main man, your homie, the dude you look up to, Charlie Manson's like, all right, TJ, do your thing. And he's got this pistol in his waistband that he's supposed to walk up, grab, and pop this guy with, this black guy. Boom, Bernard Crowe. Well, he can't do it. Well, what does that say about his mental state, right? I think that's when TJ got popped into a psychotic state. And he didn't react in the full psychotic conclusion that we saw in these other characters. Because again, every single person involved is completely different. Of course, their motivations and thoughts are different.
And going back to another one that I have to recognize is the drug burn theory as well.
Now, let's get into that a little bit, because I think for me, would you consider that, as I feel, Kasabian more?
Yeah, I think Tex and Kasabian, right? They had their own little gig going. They were selling, and I don't know that Charlie said go up to that specific house. Yeah, I think he said, go bring me back money. what was it?
Pay the
600,
Frenchman.
yeah, $600, $800 they needed, which was a failure that night because they didn't show up with that amount of money.
No, they got like
that was
17
required.
bucks or something.
Yeah,
It was like really paltry amount. But that's where Charlie, again, we use this a lot. Pay the Frenchman what you owe me.
Yep.
So that was the foundation of it.
And Tex used to be somewhat working out of that area and that house.
Well, he
right,
was
back in
friends
68
with Melcher, and then
yep.
he'd driven Melcher's beautiful Jaguar XKE as far north that I'm aware of. I think even further north. I know he got a ticket in San Luis Obispo as well, right there at the La Cuesta.
Yeah, they went up to Ukiah for Dean Morehouse's court appearance.
And that we're here in Richmond, California, in the East Bay of the San Francisco Bay Area. Woot, woot. And to go to Ukiah on my Harley Davidson motorcycle at above average speeds, it's a couple hours.
Yeah.
On the 101. So
lot of meth heads up there.
No comment. But there was other murders and things committed around that time. Beating death of a woman with a thrift store.
Yeah.
A woman who owned a blue jean outlet. Someone who allegedly had some conflict with family members, blah, 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 blah.
Jim Jones and his people were up there.
There's a lot of rumors that persist up there to this day. They go up there, bail everybody out, but it's quite a ride. So you think about the bond and the trust and the existing relationship between these people are quite deep. So there's definitely a lot of motives. And again, I can't stress enough. If you haven't done any crimes, if you've never been hurt, if you've never done violence, maybe you shouldn't comment so much on this case, because this is all real straightforward criminal logic. There's no fucking esoteric shit involved. Okay. Tex, simple dude. Drug burn with Kasabian, who apparently she had arrived how much earlier?
July 4th, I believe.
That's the common statement. That's like even all the cutesy movies where, hey, Gypsy and I were rocking down the Bird Rock, Charlie.
And by July 5th, she's ripping off her husband's buddy.
Yeah, for quite a sum. So again, the burns, the rip-offs, that seems to be par for her course. Charlie says it. All the women said it. What Lynn has told me personally was they didn't throw Piggy out there.
Mm-hmm.
Piggy was not a part of the family language. Piggy was Linda Kasabian, Linda Kasabian alone. That's why I feel Linda Kasabian might have been the one who inked up some of that stuff, might have been the one who was there with Bobby, who hyped Bobby up. I don't know why I think the DA disincluded her. I think Mary Bruner was on eggshells to save her baby. I think Charles Manson was facing a death sentence. So I think a lot of things got swept under the rug in terms of truth. And the Hinman murders, there's a lot of complicated moving parts on that never get answered. It's like bouncing bullets through JFK. There are just a bunch of mechanical things that do not add up. That, to me, as a person who's danced with the federal government myself, say federal or state law enforcement collusion to clear a case in a much easier fashion. I think they simplified a lot of things. I think they had Mary Bruner by the proverbial short and curlies with her baby. And I think a lot of those motives, including the bagpipes, have been swept under the rug. And we're going to either get those bagpipes or some more truth on that here in the future. But I think a lot of these things, the fucking of Tex Watson, the meth the fucking with Susan. Now, I think those three were having a little fun out in the garage on Spawn Ranch. I think shit was getting freaky between those three. I think those three were the drivers of the murders. I think they brought the big butch bitch with them in the form of Patty. Lynette won't like any of that because Lynn wouldn't like me suggesting that Charlie was less than kind to people that she felt he viewed in a familial, childlike way.
Well,
That they
Lynn
were his
shows a lot
children.
of grace, right? She's not a name caller, and she has generally good feelings about people.
Well, I think even her and Stoner had a falling out over her allegedly calling Susan stinky, and Stoner and her got into it over that because it's not nice. She's making me really try to be more tactful, but in my pursuit of the truth here with the author of the most meaningful reference book released to date, no sense, makes sense. I want to just be succinct and say those relationship dynamics were all individual. I think Tex knew the house so intimately that was an automatic target.
100%.
I think it was assumed there was money because not to go too far down the Nicholas Schreck path, there was known drug dealing happening. What happens when there's drug dealing? Monetary recompense, right? There should be at least a few grand up there. So they're after Bobby. They're trying to get everybody out. They're trying to do all these various things in a very productive way. There were so many comminglings of motives that, of course, the Helter Skelter was just a great way to throw a ring on Charlie because morally, I think Bugliosi had to do it because how can he let this little fucker get away? Everyone has their own. That's why people get disgusted about gay people, I think, because we try the other person on. You look at their clothes, that's fucking disgusting. Or you see a nose ring or a bad face tattoo, you're like, what a piece of crap. Because you see that you couldn't ride with that. You couldn't wake up that way. I've had exercises where I had to wear friends' clothes. Oh, dude, and go out in public. Dude, it's weird. It's really, it's an unsettling thing to be out of your element. And I think these things all were things that were made large of that Charlie had people do, had people get really uncomfortable, had people go with what they felt. And in this case, pay the Frenchman what you owe me. Meaning Charles Manson had cleaned up Tex Watson's terrible mess, resulting in the kidnapping, hostage taking of a woman named Rosina
Kroner,
which can all be found in the great court testimony of the victim of the shooting, Bernard Crowe. Thank you again, Mr. George Stimson, for cluing me in on this character. He's just a wonderful guy. But we get into this whole situation, which I believe that's where the violence started. It's fucking Tex's fault. Tex goes back with a vengeance on dope, wild as fuck with Kasabian, her going back naked. I don't believe that for a minute. I think she was holding people down with Susan. I think they were getting busy. It was the Tex Watson murders that were assisted with Katie. I think Pat Krenwinkel just served it up more heart to her than any man. I'm least interested in her because she distances herself because she is her own person, has her own feelings, has her own motives. She should have been released a million years ago.
We were talking about this the other day on the phone a little bit.
Poor girl.
It's my opinion. I can only speak for myself, but this was the D team that was sent. This isn't the A team, right? If he was really trying to get this done the right way, if this really was about knocking off a Hollywood couple and doing it on the sly and everything. He wouldn't have chosen the group of people that went to do this.
Well, you hear the rhetoric. What is the A team intellectually, right? Red, blue, gold. Okay.
Yep.
So then you got blue, who's brilliant.
And I would throw TJ in there too, right? Experienced killer
For sure.
Vietnam.
So the only killer in the group that I'm aware of.
Mm-hmm.
So up until
there were other guys on the ranch that fought in the war, but you're right. They were ranch hands.
They weren't
really
like
a part of the group.
That's what I said. He got so triggered, he shut down, didn't want a part of it, felt bad about the whole thing. I think he still held guilt on that for a long time. But you've got these different things happening. You hear Sandy later say, because I think she's quite brilliant, she talks about the rhetoric of it rather than the action of it. We touched Hollywood, right? And that, for me, is the difference between the action of somebody like Patricia Krenwinkel, who was out of love of Charlie. And when they say they were at war, they were soldiers. Again, the rhetoric of blue. They did these acts of war. And Charlie later in interviews reaffirms that rhetoric. Sometimes Red will get in on that rhetoric. But okay, we're talking war. Yet I advanced this theory to Lynn personally, and she didn't like it because Charlie was a general. Let's just face it. He was calling policy. I believe like you did. He assembled a group based on his reasoning. Tex, you're going to pay the Frenchman what you owe him. He was the most competent. TJ had proven he's not up for this, and he didn't know anybody anything.
Man, great point.
And he would just as soon leave as commit murder. He just proved it days ago.
And he proved it the next week because he bounced before the Spawn Ranch raid.
And honestly, I think that's why he took me for a ride in his pickup truck. I think that's why he was a nice guy to me. I don't think he had the capability to hurt people or children or feel cruel or be a bully or be malicious. That is my feeling of TJ until his last act, which was a very reprehensible thing that again, Lynn hipped me to a lot of the insider of that. And it's unforgivable.
Horrific.
Unforgivable. But we have the logic and we have the action. Pay the Frenchman what you owe me. I think Kasabian was in on it. I think Kasabian had her own motives and own relationships previously in that house. I think she was a vindictive, wild bitch. Cunt at large.
Trifling.
And then we got Pat. Okay, so Kasabian's got to go. Untrustworthy, sold her old man out immediately. Wild bitch, bringing nothing but trouble. She's part
and
of
only had been there for like a month.
Part of Team Tex. What is Tex doing? Fucking up. Tex has got to fucking go, bro. So let's go with your logic. Fuck Tex. Fuck her. And you know what? The goddamn Wookiee. I don't know, dude. She's getting emo on me. She's crying. Yeah. She's kind of hairy, whatever. I don't know. And she's going to get down. And maybe she'll come back. Maybe she won't. I think he cared most about Pat in that group, if he cared about anybody. And then Sadie,
who's mouthy, who he's already kicked out of the group multiple times.
How many times did he send her fucking
trying to act
packing?
like she's running things in the group and telling people what to do.
We already covered that when she was supposed to be supporting Mary Bruner and the girls in the repair of the school bus in the return trip from Texas there in New Mexico. They ranged as far as Texas. The bus broke down rather in New Mexico. Instead of staying there, she's like, "Oh, I'm gonna hit the road," and bitch got her ass whooped when she got back to the ranch. She is one of the few people documented that Charlie didn't have a problem laying a little bit of ass whoop on. And I think about it, having watched my dad lay some ass whoop on my mom that I didn't understand at the time. Hey, in the case of my mother, some of these bitches need some ass whooping laid on them. And I think Susan might have been in one of those positions. Poor girl. We talked about what she'd been through. We're over here trying to read the choir section with her mom.
Plus, she had already proved herself in the Gary Hinman murder.
Holy night. And guess what? In the fashion of bikers, guess what? You got dirt on me and I got dirt on you. You go do all these killings. You're not going to say shit to me about slashing that faggot's ear, right?
Yeah.
When you just fucking poked up a movie star, bitch, right? That's the logic in the jailhouse with whom?
The insurance policy.
We've got 3 very notorious motorcycle groups, one of which you hadn't heard of, aside from this case, the Straight Satans, 2 chapters. Their founding one, Venice, and then Valley, that commingled with the toughest of all, the Satan slaves of the Valley chapter that became the Hells Angels. So when you hear Charlie talk about the Hells Angels, it doesn't sound accurate. He's talking about the Satan slaves, Slave Louis in particular, and all these really rough, tough motherfuckers that Donkey Dick, Danny DiCarlo brought in around. This is a big, major fucking escalation. He picked these people in a military operation. He's got Danny DiCarlo in his ear. Send that bitch. Danny DiCarlo, I think, is in on it.
Danny DiCarlo took their shit to the next level. He's mounting big old
machine guns on the fucking inert or not. I think it was like either a display model or something fucked up. That's how he got it. I think he ganked this machine gun that's much is made of about it.
Mm-hmm.
And somebody probably
like
I think
50 cal or something like
somebody
that.
30 cal, whatever. Somebody owns it now, I believe. But that thing that was mounted on the dune buggy, didn't actually operate, but I think it was an inert object that was stolen by Danny.
Yeah.
And mounted on there.
We found out about a year ago that they had like a rocket launcher at the ranch, or like a bazooka or something.
Yeah, exactly. There's a lot going on, and we're not here trying to throw people under the bus, but God damn it, don't tell me you didn't fucking know. Don't fucking tell me y'all weren't sitting up there huffing on some reefer, talking about dude eating all the gypsum weed and all the belladonna and fucking cooking his brain and getting fucking real unreliable. Can't even tune a VW. Right? Send his bitch ass up there to get Charlie what he owes the Frenchman. Get the Frenchman what you owe me. It's all real succinct if you think about it like that. But these are 5 individuals who got in a real shitbox car, that 59.
The only car that was working at the time at the ranch. Johnny Schwartz's, they borrowed his little Galaxy.
And we may park it right here one day. Who knows? It might be here. But anyway, they roll up, do what they do with horrific consequences, which we're going to get into next episode. We'll get into the actual physical murders because that's going to take some time to establish some of the actions that a lot of these facts, legend, and fiction were built upon over all these many years. But we're getting back to the early parts of Helter Skelter. Now, for you, the foundation of it, the actual murders and the way Bugliosi lays it out and establishes the unimpeachable language of the introduction of the evidence through LAPD and Lasso sources. Now, what is your feeling the way he buttressed that?
I mean, I don't know if what he was trying to get at, but I know that, there was a lot of collaboration, right, between law enforcement agencies. There was a lot of thought and money that was put into this Spawn Ranch raid.
You said $2 million.
$2 million is what they say. Yep. Like 200 people, helicopters, film crews, first LA SWAT team.
$2 million. That's incredible. You think about how pissed off they were, about how much they would want retribution against these people, having no idea. Days, but how many days?
And
how many days?
For what? Sorry.
Let's clarify how many days after the cult-like ritual slaughter of the Tate LaBianca victims had taken place.
August 16th. So,
correct.
Yep.
8th and 9th were the murder nights, as they get referred to, oftentimes. And then
someone will bust our balls and say, no. The murders took place on the 9th and 10th. But you're right.
Yeah.
That's how it was always going. It was going down the nights of the 8th and 9th.
Oh my gosh. So I would read this book as a youngster, and I was like, wait, what? It was very confusing to me that these cops are here. Here's this greasy fucker. There's the picture of him with the busted ribs, all with the scraggly hair and the handcuffs behind him. Charles Manson, bloodthirsty cult leader. And how could they not know? Look at all these guilty, scraggly pigs, these biker fuckers, these motherfuckers. It was like the book was so suspenseful. What a great read. You're just like, anybody, a housewife, a minister would have read this to talk about the depravity of modern culture and society, certain people's children who shouldn't be allowed outside of the fold. What can happen outside of godly intent? Saturday, August 9th, 1969, meaning Friday, August 8th, into the morning hours of August 9th, 1969. It was so quiet. I believe this is utter dog shit. It's one of the best written pieces of dog shit I've ever read, because I remembered having read it as in 7 or 8 year old. And I was 8 because it came out. Yeah. So it was like 7 or 8. And then reading it again as an adult and remembering this first page
yes,
effing Batum. It was so quiet. One of the killers would later say, you could almost hear the sound of ice rattling and cocktail shakers in the homes way down the canyon. The canyons above Hollywood and Beverly Hills play tricks with sound. A noise clearly audible a mile away may be indistinguishable a few hundred feet away. It was hot that night, but not as hot as the night before, when the temperature hadn't dropped below 92 degrees. The 3-day heat wave begun to break a couple hours before 10 p.m. on Friday. To the psychological as well as physical relief, those Angelinos, they were called on that night. Coastal fog was now rolling in from the Pacific Ocean to relieve the type of weather that Watts had experienced, exploding in violence 4 years before. Remained hot and muggy, 10 degrees cooler on the hilltops. Cielo Drive. Still, it remained warm enough. Many of the residents in the area slept with their windows open in the hopes of catching. They should have said errant. They said vagrant.
Yeah, it's a mistake.
But as a kid, I'm not sleeping with the fucking windows open, bro. Tex Watson slicing my fucking... Bro, you see those windows in my house? You can't kick them. You can't shoot them. You can't do shit to those windows. I can leave them open at night. You can't pry them open. Shouldn't fuck that. Dude, vagrant breeze. What that meant was you get a breeze, you might get a fucking vagrant, bro. Scared the shit out of me. Curt Gentry in the front row of the Manson trial. Illegal as fuck. You can't morally, legally, or righteously do that in any stretch of the imagination. Lead prosecutor has the ghostwriter of his book in the front row, establishing this wild ass race war theory.
And plus, I'm going to add another dynamic to that. Prior to that, he was helping write a book for Bugliosi on another trial, which he said, whoa, stop on that. I need you to pick up this new case that I'm about to start. And before that, Curt Gentry was writing a book called The Late Great State of California, which is on exactly this, the fall of the Western world.
Due to Blackie and Whitey.
Yeah.
Yeah, so The Vagrant Breeze, like, dude, this was really well written, very exciting.
Well, here's the funny part. You may have heard this before. That first line about the cocktail, it says one of the killers said, first of all, there's no member of the family that ever said that. What he's doing is he's plagiarizing something that one of the Cielo neighbors said.
Boom.
The day after the murder.
Yeah, these are Hollywood writers. These are Hollywood moguls. These are the people who already won in Hollywood. This isn't some effing barista. Let me check out my screenplay, bro. These people are well spoken, and come on. But Curt Gentry, beautiful job, well written, very exciting to read.
Good writer.
Very, very heavy on the lust. You're gonna smell these girls' moans as you read it. So, all things considered, it's surprising that more people didn't hear something. But it was late, just after midnight, and 10,050 Cielo Drive was secluded. Being secluded, it was also vulnerable. So then they described the trip up there, which if you haven't driven up there, you really need to do it just to understand what we're talking about here and to just place things. But then they make much.
Don't be creepy though. Don't walk up there dressed in all black, acting all, creepy crawly. Just be a normal person, walk up the street
and wave at the neighbors and say hi and acknowledge what you're doing, because it's fucking weird what we're doing. But you know what I mean? Don't be fucking creepy about it. There's a difference between doing weird and being a goddamn creepy. So they talk about the neighbors having heard all these horrible screams and these different things. They make much of Sharon Tate keeping Candace Bergen's holiday lights up. They could be seen most of the way up from Sunset Strip. Bullshit. Fucking bullshit. You can't see that. Get the fuck out of here. But they want to do these tie-ins. They want to have babies, Christmas, innocence, the lazy, drugged out inheritance of someone, the leftover dregs of the great jawline and Nordic countenance, the great Hollywood legacy of Candace Bergen, as perverted by the lazy, drugged out, mindless sex pot Sharon Tate, loser with no talent. No Murphy Brown would she be. The karma for her drugged out silliness.
Candace was so gorgeous back then too. That year, 1969, she was on the cover of like Vogue and Elle and all the major women's magazines. She was considered like one of the most beautiful women.
Ugh.
Much more famous, well-known than Sharon Tate was.
Oh, that's what I'm saying. She was this just gorgeous icon. Sharon Tate is this like bimbo. She's like a cum dumpster, for lack of a better term. And she's just the dregs, and left shitty ass Sharon, left the fucking dream team's appropriate Christmas lights up. Just left him up. It's fucking August, you rotten slut.
Jeez.
Of course you got killed. You lazy fucking cunt. I mean, there's just so many things they fold in there. You're like, God damn, like there's a serious bourgeois. I mean, the blamp. You know what I mean? Like they just take these people's characters I don't care what side of the thing is. It's so heavy-handed to sell one of the greatest fucking fantasies.
Man, I was talking to Deb yesterday. Deb
Fantasies.
Silva made an
Pray to God.
amazing point to me on the
Deb
phone.
Silva, love
She
you.
said, "Do you realize how many of these young people's lives, which were not involved with the murders, whose lives were ruined by Curt Gentry and Bugliosi?" Because he's a newspaper kid, a kid
Oh.
that's only job is working for the LA Times,
Right,
dropping off a
right,
newspaper. He's
right.
probably like 13, 14 years old. His name gets published in this book. Another kid dropping off a bicycle to Abigail
Right,
Folger.
right.
All these names.
They still get bugged. That guy he's on podcasts now, right?
But I mean, I'm going to
But
name
his
their
name
names.
being out there is
I'll
ridiculous.
name their names in my book because they've been out there for 50
Right.
years.
We're not trying to hurt people.
But yeah, but at this time, when this comes out, these kids, they're
Very
they're kids
hurtful,
still. They're
exposed.
like 17, 18 years old.
Well,
at the
Stephen,
time.
what's his ass who
Yeah.
found the gun?
Yeah.
And there was another tie-in with him, which was interesting, right? With him, wasn't he connected in some other way too?
Yeah, I can't remember what there's a video.
Right. It's
Yeah.
like, good Lord, there's just so many lapses in moral, just the most baseline morals. And he just comes after people. He dismisses Abigail Folger.
And trust me, I mean, I believe in being accurate, right? And being detailed. That's the whole reason I wrote my book. But we also know that in the first 8 pages of this book, I found 5 errors yesterday looking at it. He's referring to Barbara Hoyt as Bo Rosenberg. He thinks Barbara Rosenberg is the same person. He's spelling Rosenberg's name wrong. He's referring to John Hott being killed or suicided by Sue Bartell, which
Right.
isn't the case. Sue Bartell wasn't in bed with John Hott. It was Linda Baldwin, aka Madeline Joan Cottage, right?
Exactly.
There's all these errors before you even get into the first chapter of the book.
That's why you have to triangulate.
He's referring to Joel Pugh as Sandra Good's husband. Sandra Good never married Joel Pugh.
That endured for a long time. It's very interesting that it seems like Charles Manson's last name was kind of drawn out of a hat. And then you look at our buddy Ivan, and his name interests me, and I want to ask him about that, what that choice may or may not have been about. But that rumor persists to this day. It's a very popular one. And I think that's why that whole thing of what are the many unsolved potential ancillary murders committed by the Manson family and their associates, Mr. Joel Pugh in London. And it was all about the Scientology, and they just want to tie all these weird things together. But Helter Skelter, I think, was one of the greatest, wildest, incredible fiction stories ever told. I think the fact that it was foisted off, so many copies were sold, that a conviction was made of Charles Manson with it, that, like you say, all these young people's lives were impacted and some ruined behind it. People were convicted wrongly or not, however you want to say it. I feel it was just nuts. It's like, what a great fucking story. Like, holy shit, you guys floated this fucking thing.
Must read.
And fucking got away with it. Like, I gave George such a hard time with Goodbye Helter Skelter because I was like, oh man, George, how could you have done this? How could you have just broken my heart and shattered my dreams? And he was like, David, what? He's a very conservative guy. Like, huh? What? You know, hold up. David, excuse me. What? What have I done? And God, he shattered the illusion. How fucking crazy was this story that Vincent Bugliosi and his co-writer Gentry, now the name was California, what the hell was it again?
Late great state of California.
There it is. I have read excerpts from it. The whole template. How could no one at the time, you don't even have to triangulate, friends. Vents. Okay. That's law enforcement. Okay. Interest violates a lot of moral issues, okay, and legal issues. But then you cut down to the professional side of it. Who actually wrote it? Gentry, right? Not one person looked at Gentry's portfolio and saw like, I say something. It's like where Christianity and Islam kind of overlap, and there was some flood instances, and wasn't there a chronology of a fire and there was locusts and things, you know what I mean? Come on, dude, Elijah, Muhammad, brother. We're all smoking the same tea here, people. But no one bothered in 69 to just say something like that. They foisted one of the craziest scams off in American judicial history. And they did it like such flair and aplomb. And then the people coming up against them played the fucking media. You've never seen a media move like this. The only comparison that's valid with Adolf Hitler, in my opinion, was the way the media was played. Adolf Hitler was the original fucking wild man rock and roll video star. Video fucking superstar. The Nuremberg rallies, Lena Riefenstahl, the music, the way he staged lighting, cathedrals of spotlights, incredible stuff. A lot of theater, right? Well, the family did that shit as the girls on the corner. They did it as girls marching to court, blithely holding hands and skipping along in those dresses, saffron dresses, singing on their way to the gas chamber. Charles Manson had melted these girls' minds beyond recognition.
Did you see him in, I think it was chapter 1, he called Lynn the de facto leader once Charlie was in jail? Well, I mean, I guess, but
well, according to him, that would be the truth. And I think one of the wildest stories I've ever heard in my effing life, a few of them relate about the girls on the corner. One of them was them when they were going to self-immolate, and people just wanted to watch it. They weren't there with an ambulance to save them. They were trying to fucking film it. The other thing was when they came in from the crawl, and they're all bandaged up and bloodied and sunburned from crawling for days and puffy and destroyed and stinky.
it's one of the craziest things in this whole case.
Stinky. Stinky, as my Hispanic friends would say. It's stinky. They're there. Dawn is breaking. They're like, girls, you're like, can't, their mittens are burnt, bloody. Can't rub your own nose. Your eyes are, everything's dirty. You're filthy. You've been sweating. The only thing nice that happened was the Hispanic women, when you went through certain areas, were kind to you and just saw the religious fervor, the self-flagellation you were putting yourself through for the man you loved, for your Messiah, for your hero. That was the only sympathy they got. So they're sitting there literally licking their wounds. The girls that remained. Gypsy said she'd never been so glad to see a cop in her life when she got arrested with an outstanding warrant. I told Lynn that. She was like, wow. She did have a warrant. And I was like, yeah, shit. This later documentary, she said she was like so relieved.
So bring us home, man. Close this out.
Doing it. Bugliosi walks up. Hey, girls. What's up? What's going on? Lynn says, was down here trying to wake some people up. And he says, well, good morning to you. Just on my way to work. Meaning to put the one they love to death. To just totally reinforce this self-flagellation that these women had suffered their own accord. Just an incredible, epic story. Just say whatever you want about it.
So we're gonna stick with Helter Skelter for a little while.
Oh, I'm melting.
If you guys haven't read it before, go ahead and pick up a used copy. Don't put any more money into
Anybody's
Bugliosi.
pocket. And the other
Yeah.
thing is, this is the one I saw when I was a kid. I love the shocking cover. I love this particular size and format. This is how I remember it. It's so shocking seeing the girls on the corner. It's just such a gnarly revelation and just incredible manipulation of the media that eventually, like I say, Charles Manson, they went through all this just to run it in the wall and not say a word in their defense. One of the most incredible feats of human theater of all time, recorded for posterity. I'm going to leave you with that, Twilighters. Producer Alex.
Thank you, sir.
My friend, compatriot, man who suggested where we're going to next. Danny's Reading Club. We're going to check out next the Badlands Murders. I think that's a good direction.
I want to
you,
give
Danny,
a
After
special
Dark.
shout out to my good friends in Indiana, Michelle and Kaylee. I'll leave their last names out of it just for safety purposes, but
because we care.
They're at the chocolate factory, and I just want to show them some love.
Wonderful. Wonderful. I want you all to be safe. May your God shield you, love you, bring you some happiness and some feeling of satisfaction